Joining us right now, Kate Irby from our friends of the Bradenton Herald. You got a four-part series that talks about this problem about heroin. And step me back just a little bit. So how do we get into this position where all of a sudden heroin is like this big bad #1 drug? I mean, what took its place?
So before you had the pill mills, which I think everyone in Florida is pretty familiar with. You've got them back in 2011, they started shutting them down. So you had these doctors prescribing pain medication to people who really didn't need it, and then they would go and sell them cheaply on the streets. So when all of those started shutting down, these addicts, of course, didn't magically say, well, you know what, I'll stop being an addict, and they then get clean. They instead turned to something that would be cheaper for them as the cost for those pills increased.
See, when the pill mills existed, and they still do exist, you could never really tell who was a typical user. But when you think of heroin, you're thinking, boy, this is a hardened, I don't want to use the word criminal, but I guess it is criminal, but a very hardened person, you know, that things are going bad, and the spiral is just going to go down until we know what the end result is in a lot of cases. It's death.
So we've actually seen a lot of that, unfortunately. So we're seeing deaths are picking up tremendously in addition to overdose calls. So in 2012, you only had, in Manatee County alone, you only had, Manatee County, Sarasota County, and DeSoto, excuse me.
Yeah.
You had 8 deaths from heroin and another drug called fentanyl that's being mixed with heroin now.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get into that. In 2012, there were 8 deaths. In 2013, there were 19.
Oh,
2014 jumped to 63.
Oh, 63? What is law enforcement doing about it? I know it's part of the series. I mean, how are they reacting to it?
Well, law enforcement gets in these kind of binds. I mean, they don't have a huge amount of funding, so they try to stop the supply as it comes in. They think it's coming from Mexico and South America, but they don't have a whole lot of options in terms of getting down there. So you can't, it's kind of shutting it off as it comes in and as they see it.
So what is the only exit avenue that leads to living again? Is it going through treatment, and is it easy to get treated? And I'm thinking, if you're this desperate that you're buying heroin, probably a good bet you don't have a lot of cash floating around to pay for treatment.
Exactly. So a lot of officials say that, of course, law enforcement is the supply side. They're in charge of shutting that off. But they say the better route to take is the demand side. If you can cut down on those addicts or prevent them from being addicts in the first place through education, that's the best route you can take. So treatment, it can be very expensive. Manatee Cleanse is the main one we have in Manatee County. And they do have options for people who aren't insured, but they only get a certain amount of state funding for those people. And of course, they want to help as many people as they can, but they'll go out of business if they help everyone.
In your series, you get a chance to talk to any users at all?
Yep, we talked to 2 users.
And how do they feel about all this?
So they were both recovering, so neither one is active addiction.
Okay.
But one has been clean for 2 years, and her name is Bradenton. And she was able to get through Manatee Cleanse and the uninsured program. She didn't have to pay a lot. She said she was amazed at how cheap it was, and she wishes other addicts knew that she didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah, and you said you talked to 2 of them. What was the addict you talked to?
The other addict was the same way. She didn't realize that she could get through uninsured. She didn't even know the treatment options that were out there for her. She only ended up knowing because her mom kind of picked her up and was like, you need to do this.
Now, I'm wondering about what is this switch that you go from getting what you know is a prescribed painkiller, OxyContin, Codone, they're very strong, and we know they can be addictive, but then how do you make that change in your head where you're going from oxycodone to now a hardcore drug?
So it's an addiction. So they have these opiates, which is, let's say, like oxycodone, Percocet, those really strong painkillers they're getting from these pill mills, and all of a sudden those prices started increasing. So Bradenton gave us a huge breakdown. It was like $5 per pill when you bought them in bulk back during the pill mill era. And the last time she was in it was 2 years ago, and she said it was $30 a pill at that point. So you can't afford it. And of course, these addicts can't afford it because a lot of them aren't working.
And the heroin was actually cheaper then?
And heroin is more like $20 a bag.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a lot cheaper, so you turn to that, and that's the thing. When you are on withdrawal from these drugs, you feel sick, you're nauseous, you're throwing up, you're hot and cold, you feel like you have the flu, but 10 times worse is what they
Well, folks, you need to pick up a copy of the Bradenton Herald and read about it. It's a great 4-part series and great work, and man, I hope people that are on heroin can get off, because it's a death trap all the way around. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.